Oh, look, we are recording the video. Hey to everybody on the YouTube channel. I'm really looking forward to this program. It's hard to believe. Next week the film comes out. But enough of that delay. You see the pants over to my right on the screen. You see the pants of one Oscar Isaac. I just saw this teaser, so I'm going to have to open the show with it here. So, and it would help if I actually turned off notifications from TweetDeck so that it doesn't go crazy. There we go. So, in a 3, in a 2, in a 1.
Hola, soy Oscar Isaac. Aquí tienen un avance exclusivo de mi próxima película Star Wars The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
En cines el 18 de diciembre.
Red Squad, Blue Squad, take my lead.
I'm on it.
You got my beauty.
El 18 de diciembre.
You're sure you're up for this?
Una nueva aventura.
I'll show you the dark side.
Comienza.
All right, let's light it up. We need cover.
Get ready.
I'm getting pretty good at this.
Star Wars The Force Awakens. Clasificada PG-13.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time here on the Star Wars Tonight podcast, we can say officially the movie comes out next week. I cannot wait. And also, I just finished a Star Wars book that I should have finished a year ago. And we're going to talk all about it on this episode of Star Wars Tonight. Let's get started right now.
Falcon flight with destiny. Headlong into the fight. Birds of a feather well weathered together. Chasing the dark from the night. Falcon flight with destiny. Headlong into the fight. Birds of a feather well weathered together. Chasing the dark from the night. Falcon flight with destiny.
Rumble, 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 rumble. Man, it's freaking Oscar Isaac flying around in an X-Wing. It's, man, it keeps happening. I keep getting more excited about this movie. Is it a problem? Maybe. Let me ask my good buddy and yours, Mr. Justin Robert Young.
Oh.
What's up, Justin?
Oh, man. Next week. I gotta say, man, I'm now in the point where, like, just things happening in my life are either, like, I'm feeling like they're either good or bad omens about the movie.
There's nothing neutral that's, like, pushing you one direction or the other?
Well, we're getting to the point where I just don't know whether or not I want to contemplate the idea that this movie is anything other than good.
That's so true. I mean, if you ask Harrison Ford, a renowned Star Wars critic, and if you ask Steven Spielberg, I mean, we have some good endorsements, sir.
Well, Spielberg said it was going to be the biggest movie ever, right?
He did. Well, that's true. And I think in another interview, although it's kind of, the quoting it depends on what it is, because it's, I'm trying to think here. It was kind of, I think it was a translation of some sort that was establishing some confusion. But I think the universal thought is people are liking it. Even George Lucas, who's now seen it and says he likes it.
Yes. And also, I think that would prevent Steven Spielberg from being like, oh my God, this is so much better than every other Star Wars movie, right? Because he doesn't want to crap on his friend. Like, George Lucas is one of his dudes. So, like, and also, I think we can all wrap our head around the idea of something that people who have probably known George Lucas for a very, very long time already are well aware of, which is that George Lucas is a bit of a sensitive gentleman.
It is.
Right?
He is. And I think a lot more so than he would let on, because I think there's a long time, which you can read about in How Star Wars Conquered the Universe. More on that in a moment. Where he just kind of avoided the internet. He just decided to live in the 1980s world until like 2007.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother thing of itself. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, but I want to give a quick shout out as we wrap up last week's sponsor on the program here, Waze. They're doing something really cool for you guys. They're doing a giveaway. So we're going to cap off the anticipation and the sponsorship that they've been doing with us here with a special giveaway for you guys. Now, we already arranged to do it on the Twitter. Like, that's where the big mass audience is in terms of Star Wars Report stuff. But I wanted to do something special for you guys. And by you guys, I mean you watching live and in the chat right now. Shoot me an email. It's going to be starwarstonight@gmail.com. And you're going to get one of several really cool prizes for the first few folks who give us an email. The grand prize being a $30 gift card to Fandango, so that you can get you and your friends in theaters to see The Force Awakens. So just shoot me an email. I'm doing a special giveaway because I'm doing the big Twitter giveaway, but I've also saved one just for you who are watching live. If you're listening to the podcast version or watching this on YouTube or something, too late. Too late, sinner. But we appreciate Waze for partnering with us. And it's, again, if you want to check out the GPS app, you can go to starwarsreport.com/WazeGPS and check out C-3PO as your co-pilot of choice. Police reported ahead. It's all your fault. That's my favorite thing ever. But let's talk about it, man. I mentioned it last week, and promptly within an hour of getting off of Skype with you, sir, I listened to, in the span of a week, the span of what we call Dead Week here in Georgia State University, when you're supposed to be studying for finals, all 25 hours of the audiobook to How Star Wars Conquered the Universe by Chris Taylor. I recently chronicled my personal sins of having the actual author himself hand me an autographed copy and still having not read it some 6 months later.
And what did you do? You spit right in his face, didn't you?
I'm telling you, man, but there's repentance, and I have done so.
Yeah.
And I will tell him so when we get him on the show very soon. But it's amazing, man. It's everything it lives up to, and I just wanted to touch base on it because I know you're a big fan of it. Fun fact, Justin, I go to Amazon to look it up. I actually ordered a couple copies for Christmas presents, and I see this novella of a review.
A glowing review.
And I'm like, wait a second. That's the one and only Andrew Main. A very excellent review. But when did you first read this book?
Probably about a year ago, something like that. I mean, before we had him on the Weird Things podcast for the first time, I read it, and it was look at this, A Main, a wonderful in-depth look at the Star Wars phenomenon, its creators and fans. So, I mean, I read it about a year ago. I read probably primarily nonfiction. I don't read a ton of fiction.
Yeah, same for me.
I have very particular thoughts about nonfiction, and specifically when it comes to, there's like small story nonfiction in which you probably don't know the story, and there is a tale being unfolded for you for which you could probably skip to the end and just look up the Wikipedia. But if you want to go on their journey, you can. And then there's big picture nonfiction, like The Office of the Presidency or Star Wars, stuff like that, in which very often the choices that authors make in terms of deciding what's important to cover and what's not important to cover, and any broad themes that kind of are weaved into it, tend to be where things fall apart for me. And what I loved about How Star Wars Conquered the Universe is that it is very much if there is an ongoing thread, it is George Lucas's relationship with his greatest creation, and how, its humble beginnings, how much it really came apart or came to be because, and if there's a big thing, the big story in How Star Wars Conquered the Universe is George Lucas's collaborations and how they've evolved over the years. Star Wars, the original trilogy, is what it is because of who he worked with and because of the relationship that he had with the people that he trusted the most to make this from the brilliant seed of an idea that he had to the big, beautiful flower for which is its own genre of filmmaking at this point.
Absolutely. And what
As-
he does is he has such a concise and excellent narrative to it that
Yeah.
you're right, there is a nice thread through it, because the story of something like Star Wars is something that I'm intimately familiar with the last few years from the world of podcasting and blogging. So that's where I am personally connected with a lot of the stories he tells about Albin Johnson and his daughter and the fundraising for her and R2KT, or the advent of the 501st, and these different fan community events, or the Wear Star Wars, Share Star Wars Day that started, and all these really cool aspects of fandom. But he threads it all together so nicely in a way that as someone who's neck deep in fandom, you can't see the forest for the tree sometimes. And it's nice to get that sort of large picture of the cultural phenomenon that it's really good.
Well, and really, you look at, I mean, to me, this was the clearest picture of the narrative. When The Force Awakens is good, and everybody loves Star Wars without reservation again, and we no longer, the Civil War is officially behind us, and no matter whether or not we liked or didn't like the prequels, we can all agree that The Force Awakens was super fun, and we can talk about and geek out about that. We will begin to see the narrative in the redemption of George Lucas, and we will, in the minds of people who I think unfairly have kind of pinned upon him a ruined childhood, what that story will, the seeds of that, the roadmap of that, I believe, is found in this book, which is that George Lucas wanted to distance himself from Star Wars for years. Some might say a decade, or close to 2 decades.
Yeah.
But the machinery he had built with Lucasfilm was so important to him that, try as he might to start new franchises and keep it in new work, and ILM becoming something gigantic, he was never able to do it, and always had to come back to Star Wars. Because if he wanted Lucasfilm to thrive and the people there to thrive, he had to continue producing Star Wars. Yeah. And that's where we get the disconnect in the prequels, and him maybe making it too much of a movie for everyone, and therefore having it kind of become movies for no one. And in that, you can see a hero. You can see a hero who wanted to be there for the people that were there for him, and moved up to Northern California, as far away from California, from LA as possible, to believe in his vision of this co-op movie making community, which is very deeply personal to him. And now we've hopefully seen the final. He released this big, beautiful bird into the sky, and we all get to bask in its glory a week from now.
I feel like, though, he did kind of step up onto the ledge for a second there in the last few weeks, and then just Kathleen Kennedy and the Disney PR people just took his hand and he stepped back off, because it was a little bit sketchy there, where he was being pretty raw in some interviews about his lack of involvement. But if you read and people are taking it totally out of context, but if you read the Vanity Fair piece or watch video of it, and he talks about there's the big quote, the divorce, and that's in all the headlines. But in context, if you listen to what he says, he's basically saying that it is time for me to move on. And I think, Justin, that's the kind of George Lucas everyone will get behind, whether it's his diehard supporters, in spite of all the flaws, like myself, down to his greatest critics. They can all respect his decision, I think, at this point. And I think you get a lot better idea of why that would be the case, I think, with a book like this.
Well, I think, he will always have, hopefully, 2 greatest legacies. Number 1, the creation of Star Wars, and number 2, his ability to do something that, to be honest, many sole creators can't do, which is let their greatest creation grow beyond them. And that's huge. That's something that, how many franchises have languished under the onus of their original creators, even as fans beg and plead and hope that maybe it could be something more, and that's down from iconic showrunners to people who own the rights to things. This is kind of a general song that is sung many times in the genre. fantasy, sci-fi, horror communities. And George Lucas had he said, no, you want to know what? It can be bigger. It can be, Lucasfilm can thrive as just a Star Wars mechanism, which is something that it's kind of always wanted to be. And it can do great and wonderful things.
Absolutely. And then the other thing about this that I wanted to touch on before we move on is a quote that I actually pulled that really stuck with me, and that I think I've come to appreciate because someone who I've become intimately familiar with just because he is such an ambassador to the fan community is the showrunner for the Clone Wars and now Star Wars Rebels, Dave Filoni, who's probably,
Yes.
in terms of people who are in the trenches now, the greatest disciple of Lucas. And you'll, in fact, in my opinion, if you watch Rebels, especially if you watch Clone Wars when Lucas was still a producer on it, you'll see some of the same weaknesses carried through. It's very Lucasian in a lot of the flaws. But Star Wars Rebels, I feel like, also has a lot of freedom to grow beyond some of those limitations as well. And Dave Filoni embraces this quote, and that is attributed anonymously and probably rightfully so to from some Lucasfilm insiders. To make Star Wars, you have to hate Star Wars. And I thought it was interesting because out of context it sounds kind of harsh, but really when it comes to reverence for something that is literally just what started as he calls Flash Gordon fan fiction that just transcended it and became its own mythology, but where it's very humble beginnings, and you have to kind of understand that, I think, to understand why it has a sort of pop appeal. And if you lose that, it kind of starts taking itself too seriously. And that was my problem with a lot of the expanded universe, is this sort of overly reverential take on Star Wars. And that's, I think, one thing I've seen that I'm very happy with in the Star Wars marketing is it doesn't seem too reverent. Like, there's a TV spot, we didn't play it at the beginning.
I mean, my biggest problem with a lot of the expanded universe is that it's hot poop. Like, it's not good. They're not good stories.
That's
and I think
Star Wars Tonight at gmail.com.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying all of the expanded universe. I'm just saying your favorite books, listeners. So please write Riley. No. Listen, I mean, I don't think that's controversial to say that there were bad expanded universe books, right? Like that. No, who is out there saying yes? All of them are golden.
I'm pulling it up right now. Facebook groups.
Nobody. Stop it.
Hashtag.
Stop it.
No, I'm kidding.
All right. Here is, I don't know. I mean, like what else do we want to talk about? I'm so nervous. What are we going to do here?
No, man. I think that I like that, and I think that we're going to see that level of humor, that level of. There's a line in one of the TV spots that came out a couple days ago where it's just like Han Solo looks over to Rey and he hands her his blaster and he's like, "You're gonna need this," and she's like, "I can take care of myself," and he says, "That's why I'm giving it to you." And there's a kind of like fun back and forth. There's a Chewie, we're home. It's not too overtly.
It's the first time I heard that, and I'm very, very happy that that's the first time I heard that line was you doing the impression. That's great.
You're welcome here. I'll be here all night. And I want to touch on one other thing before we bolt, and that is an Entertainment Weekly article here, actually, Justin.
All right.
And it's in fact, so there was this press junket last night. And
Yes.
I had a lot of friends there. I was not. I'm not bitter about it at all. This is my face. This is me. My face not being bitter. Okay.
Not
All
being
right,
bitter, sure.
There we go. But 3 things that we're not going to see in The Force Awakens confirmed from Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams. Number 1,
Indeed.
Ewoks ain't going to show up in The Force Awakens.
Well, caveat, right?
What did
JJ say?
At least alive.
Living Ewoks. No living Ewoks. Because last time we saw, where was that melted ass helmet?
Yeah, that's true.
Darth Vader's.
That's true. And, well, and that goes back to some early rumors as well, which I'm afraid to touch on in case they're true. But but yes.
No living Ewoks.
No living Ewoks. No Jar Jar Binks.
Yes.
To cheers in the crowd. Actually. And finally, probably.
I mean, they would have really had to work hard to force him in. What is the average lifespan
all right,
of a gun?
let me tell you this, Justin. You're gonna hate me for it, but
Yeah.
But at the same time, I want you to also forward what I'm saying right now to Andrew Main, because
Yeah.
if you watch Return of the Jedi, the 2004 DVD edition. Friend of the show, sound designer extraordinaire Matthew Wood, did work on those post-celebration shots that you see in the celebration once the Emperor dies.
Yeah.
On the shot at Naboo, right at the very end, you're going to see, standing awkwardly on top of one of the domed architectural sites there, and you're going to hear in the distance, "We set free!" I kid you not. If you pull up your...
I don't. Yeah, no, wait. Yeah, you don't need to explain that to me. Like,
No.
I wrote my angry message board posts about those changes. I know them.
What's
I'm
funny
well
is
aware.
that actually got a lot less play than the Darth Vader "no," which I think is hilarious. But point being is that Jar Jar Binks is definitely not going to be in The Force Awakens. Big surprise.
According to Star Wars Wikipedia, right? The lifespan of a Gungan is 65 standard galactic years. So even if this takes place 30 years after, that would be he would be ancient Jar Jar, right? Because how old was he supposed to be in
It'd be
Phantom
more like,
Menace?
"We set free."
Yeah, so he was very. Apparently, he was spry for a 45-year-old Gungan.
Exactly. Yeah, it cracks me up to this day whenever I tell people that, and then they look at me wide-eyed and tell me I'm lying, and then we pull it up. It's a fun little experiment you can do with your friends. Also, lastly, the last thing that's probably actually germane to serious conversation is no Easter egg, no stinger at the end. JJ confirmed. No Easter egg.
With a little bit of snark. You get the sense that if you probably cornered J.J. Abrams at a party and asked him what he thought of Marvel's Easter eggs after the films, he probably had a few choice words because he dismissed it with a very curt, no, all of our scenes are actually in the movie.
That is true. It does kind of read that way. I didn't hear the audio, but now that you say that, it does kind of come off a little bit.
J.J. Abrams seems like, again, if you create blockbuster filmmaking, you probably have a lot of thoughts about blockbuster filmmaking. And also, it seems like those scenes are usually there more at the studio's behest than necessarily that particular director's behest, that it is there as connective tissue that they are just kind of told to shoot, that ties into other stuff. So I could see somebody like J.J. Abrams maybe not particularly cottoning to after credit button scenes like we in the fan community,
especially because he does come so heavily from the school of Spielberg and the school of Lucas style of filmmaking. I could definitely see that being the case. So I'm personally, I was kind of hoping we will, and maybe that is something we'll see for maybe the spin-off films. But for this theatrical Star Wars continuing saga, it does not look like something that will happen.
The thing is, I kind of doubt it because Marvel started doing it at a point where we didn't quite know Marvel didn't quite know whether or not people still wanted to go see Marvel movies or if they just wanted to go see Iron Man.
Yeah.
So it's like the fact that you could tie it into something else and kind of advance the story or give it a hint going forward is certainly part of it. I don't think Star Wars is going to have a problem with people wanting to see more Star Wars movies, as long as they're good.
This is true. And that again, as we keep coming back to, that is the ultimate question. As a side note, our good friends at the Alamo Drafthouse, I'm going to read you this sentence, Justin, and a theater chain is determined to find the country's biggest fan of the iconic sci-fi franchise Star Wars. Sounds good. Quote, "At the Alamo Drafthouse, we're big fans of Star Wars and testing the boundaries of human endurance." That is an actual quote from Alamo CEO and founder Tim League. You want to guess what they're doing, Justin? Because you're seeing the film at the new Drafthouse, right? Is what I've heard.
We'll see it on Saturday at the brand spanking new Mission Alamo Drafthouse in San Francisco. So this is again the same Alamo Drafthouse that hosts Harry Knowles Button-Amathon, which is a solid 24 hours of movies.
Wow. So
this is the same Alamo Drafthouse that does. this isn't even controversial anymore that most movies, most major blockbusters that have a bunch of prequels or movies that came before it do big 9-hour long movie marathons. That happens all the time now. I would guess if Alamo wanted to go above and beyond, they would probably do something like a 48-hour, 72-hour kind of movie marathon.
Oh, Justin, that's so adorable. I think that's it. I mean, let's be honest. We're doing all the 12 to 14-hour marathons of the 6 films. I know a bunch of my friends are doing it. And then if you wanted to be super hardcore, you could do a day or two. But I think that's the starting point. That's first base when it comes to Star Wars fandom, because what they're offering 7 select fans at the Austin location, which is pretty interesting, is whoever can sit their butt in the theater and watch all 7 Star Wars films on a loop, the longest, last man standing, gets 7 years free access to the Alamo Drafthouse. Somebody call Brian Brushwood. No, I'm kidding. I don't think.
Wait a minute. Oh, man, that seems illegal.
I know.
That just seems like that's like. Listen, man, go ahead and Google that that radio station in Seattle that killed the lady for doing the water drinking competition.
Oh yeah, that's so true. Quote: Alamo's famous draft house will enforce their no talking and texting policy during this, and they allow a short break between films. Wait, can the only thing you eat be like popcorn? Like, this thing's gonna last for days. And the fact this is gonna be hardcore is that they've already pre-screened and selected the 7 fans. Now you know it's serious business.
Oh my God! So wait, are they gonna start doing it now?
They start leading into The Force Awakens, and then they just keep going after December 18th. They just keep on going. So it'll be like the 6 movies, The Force Awakens, and then keep rolling, Joe. Just keep going. In the words of,
oh my God, what a crash down to earth if Force Awakens is good, and then you just gotta cue right up Phantom Menace, and it's just right to a blockhead is perfect where we go.
That's so true. That's so true. This episode of Star Wars Tonight has been brought to you by.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Oh God.
Hold on. I got an announcement.
Oh.
Where are you seeing the movie?
Well, it's interesting you should ask, Justin. Me and my good buddy, South Georgia youth pastor and podcast personality, Steve Glosson, we're all piling in the car and doing a fanboy-style road trip across the country to Austin, Texas, where I will sit my butt down in an Alamo Drafthouse theater for the first time on opening night.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed, sir.
Because I just got word that my plans to go to Los Angeles have been scuttled. I was gonna go with your friend and mine, Andrew Main, in Los Angeles opening night, and it's because I have business in Austin, Texas on Thursday, the night of The Force Awakens.
What?
So I believe I will be in that same theater with you on that evening.
Holy Captain Tarples on a Gundark.
Look at that.
Getting in that's amazing, man. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. You did it again, Justin. Stop it. Now you're making me more excited about seeing this movie.
That's how you end a podcast, Junior.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Folks, thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Star Wars Tonight. Folks, this episode has been brought to you by our patron supporters, supporting us at patreon.com/Star Wars Report. We really do appreciate your guys' ongoing support, and we've had a ton of folks joining us in this last month, so thank you so much for jumping on board. I'd like to give out a personal shout-out to Kay, to Mario, to Matt, Devon, and Daniel, all this week, brand new patrons, and we thank you for supporting us here at Star Wars Tonight. Folks, you can email the show at starwarstonight@gmail.com. Remember that contest giveaway. If you're still listening live, shoot emails in, and I've got special prizes for you. The grand prize being that gift card from Fandango, $30 to take you and your friends to see The Force Awakens. Whew. Justin Robert Young can be found on the Night Attack podcast and the Weird Things podcast and the Daily Tech News Show, as well as writing books, as well as... It's almost like he does this full time, but most importantly, remember, look at your screen now, thecontender.us. Order it. If you like politics, then
Or
like
don't.
me.
If you hate politics and you want to play a fun game that makes fun of it, this is the way to do. And decks are in stock. They're in stock. They're in stock. You can touch them and feel them and taste them. Get them in your life immediately.
Get it in your life yesterday. Folks, I can be found on Twitter. I'm at The Riley Guy. Justin is at Justin R. Young. Make sure that you're tuned in to StarWarsReport.com. We've got a lot of stuff going on, including giveaways, including blog posts and reviews and podcast networks and all kinds of creative stuff. So it's never a better time to be a Star Wars fan. So we appreciate you joining us in this countdown to The Force Awakens, premiering next week. May the Force be with you. That's all, folks. Woo!
Woo!
I'm going to stop the stream. Thanks to everybody who watched live, as always. It's an absolute blast. Appreciate you jumping on, man. All right, there. We are